So good morning. My name is Iqbal Garwal. I am Technical Support Manager here at CADpoint. Thank you for joining us today for this live webinar, Top 10 Tips for Autodesk AEC Collection, Getting Started with Revit. So to give you some background about us, CADpoint is based in Crowthorne, Berkshire, and is a gold partner for Autodesk software. We have a team of experts ready to assist you in all aspects of design. We are also partners with some of the most trusted hardware manufacturers in the industry, including HP, NVIDIA, etc. As well as software, our team can also offer introductory training for new customers or advanced courses for experienced users to help you get the most from your software. So without further ado, I'll move on and pass you now on to Jonathan.
Good morning, everybody, and thank you for joining us here, and thank you for the introduction, Iqbal. So my name is Jonathan Reinhardt. I have a background as a BIM manager and as an architectural technologist, and I've studied both a degree and a master's degree across BIM and architectural technology as well. I'm based in Ireland, down in Cork, and I work across the UK, Europe and across Ireland as well, doing BIM training, particularly around Autodesk products, including Revit. And I've used Revit probably for 5 to 6 years, and I've about 15 years experience in the architectural industry as well. So I'm very familiar with the architectural process and the nuances of working in an architect's office, particularly when you're making the move from maybe a CAD process or workflow to a Revit workflow. So I'm very familiar with that, and I've done it quite a number of times myself. And today I hope to give you 10 top tips for getting started with Revit. So the first tip I want to cover today is just to help you understand how levels work, because it's one of the first things or new kind of ways of working that definitely surprised me, and I feel kind of getting your head around that initially is one of the best things you can do when you first start using Revit. So here we have an elevation view open, and we can see on the right hand side here we've got a series of levels. Now these levels are actual levels that exist in the project. They're not just annotations, they do actually exist. So we can see that we've got dimensions on them here as well, so that's minus 800. If I was to move this level, for example, if I was to move this level, I can see that that dimension has now changed to minus 1900. So you can see that they're live levels in their entirety. So I suppose the purpose of that is that whenever you place an object such as a wall or a piece of furniture, or even if it's a car as we can see here, or even if it's a foundation or even a window, whenever you place an object, it's always attached to a level. So when I select this window, for example, I can see on the left hand side here, I can see the level that that is attached to. Now all that means is that when it gets modeled or when you place it, you just happen to have this level open. Now I can change where that level is associated with that particular window. But if I select the wall, for example, and this is probably where it's most relevant, I can see the base constraint of that wall is level 2. Therefore, that wall is placed at level 2. So level 2 across here, we can see this is the 3000. Now below that, you also have something called the base offset. And this can be quite beneficial for when you're modeling things such as walls and you want maybe the wall to run below the level. So this particular wall, the base offset is set to minus 300. Therefore, when you model this wall, it will come below the level by minus 300. So if I set this to 0, for example, hit apply on that, we can see that that wall has in fact jumped back up to that particular level, and if the base offset is 0, therefore it's just set at level 2, which is 3 meters. Now if I change this to minus 100, all it does is extend the wall below that particular level. So we can see that it's minus 100 there. If I now go into my 3D view just to have another look at this, I can select the wall and I can see this particular wall has minus 500 and it's placed at level 2. And these curtain walls, I suspect, are placed at level 1. So these are placed at level 1 as well. And if I even select this person or this entourage in the project, this is set at the ceiling level. But it's set at minus 150, and that's just the way the different levels are set up, that this particular ceiling level that's attached to is here. Now, how that matters when you actually go to model, if I go into a floor plan, for example, I'm just going to my level 1 here. If I go into my floor plan and if I start placing a wall, go to architecture, place your wall, I'm just going to start placing any exterior wall here. As I start placing it, I can see the level I'm in is level 1, and the base constraint is level 1. And I'll just start placing that like so. So I'm just going to place 4 walls here for argument's sake. Now I'm going to go back into my 3D view, and I can see all those walls that I placed. The base constraint is set to level 1 minus 600, and it's unconnected. I can now actually select the top constraint for that up to level 2. I'm just going to set this to 0, hit apply on that, and that has changed that particular wall. Now I can select all of these walls if I want, hitting the tab key, press 0 on this, also go to level 2 for top constraint, and there you have your walls created from levels. The second tip I want to explain to you is understanding instance versus type. So a type is made up of, for example, a wall is a type of wall, but everywhere you place that particular wall, that is an instance of that type of wall. So if you think of the hierarchy, you have type at the top, and then coming off that, each individual one is a different instance of that particular item. To understand that in a bit more detail, I'm just going to select a window here, for example. So this particular window is an instance, this window is a separate instance, and this again is another instance. So for example, we have 3 instances of this window type. So all of these windows, the type is known as single window. So if I go to edit type, I can see that the family is a single window and the type is a standard. So I can create another standard type if I want. So duplicate the standard. I'm going to just call it standard 2 for now. I'm going to just change the width of it just so we know that it's different. So I'm just going to come out of that, and I'm actually just going to change my width in the left hand side here, for example. So I'm just going to make this 500, just going to hit apply, and it only happens to that particular instance. If I want to place another instance of this window, I can simply right click, go create similar, and place it to the left of it. Now we can see here that it's come in kind of a funny location. Because of the base constraint, I can just roll up to the different level that it's set at, and I can set that to 0, and it will come down and it's aligned to your bottom. So that's the difference between and a type. So a type is at the top of the hierarchy, and an instance is every individual location of that particular type. The next thing I want to show you is working with CAD files. So this can be quite useful, particularly when you're making that transition from maybe your CAD process, or if you're still using that CAD process while moving to your BIM or Revit process. You can also link in CAD files that you maybe created a floor plan or a site plan. So how you do that is you go into one of your particular levels where you want to place it. You go to link CAD on the left hand side, and you scroll to wherever that particular CAD file is. So here we have a CAD file saved here. And it gives you a couple of different options. You can preserve the colors, and it just keeps the colors of the layers. I like to keep it to black and white, and then I just set the import units to whatever it is. In this case, it's millimeters. So I'm just going to hit open on that, and it's just going to place that particular CAD file. Now, the way the CAD file links in, it's very similar to how XREFs work in AutoCAD, in that if I was to make a change to this in AutoCAD, and then within my CAD file, go into manage links inside inside Revit, go to CAD formats, and here I can see I have this particular file linked in, and as long as I've made a change and saved the AutoCAD file, I just hit reload here and all the updates will come through. Now it does only come through in a completely flat 2D surface, so there's no extrusions or anything here. You need to add those extrusions, and the way to do that is, what I like to do is I like to just grey this out. So I select it and just type in EOH on the keyboard, and that just grays it in the background, and it is pinned in place. We can see here that's good for working when you're tracing. It just saves it from moving. So you go back up to your wall tool, simply go to your wall tool that you want to select. I'm using this particular generic 200mm, and just select pick lines. And in order to pick lines, you need to choose if you want it on the wall center line or the finish face exterior. I'm going to choose the finish face exterior. Therefore, that's where the placement of the wall is going to be. So I'm just going to select this wall, and that has now placed that particular wall all the way around my particular building. So if I go back to my 3D view, we can see here that we've got our walls created over our floor plan, and this floor plan is just being used to be created. I can also continue to do the same along here. I can do all the internal walls as well, simply by picking the lines, and you can see you can create a floor plan very quickly just from tracing in your CAD file. As Revit creates floor plans from your 3D modeling, so they're all intricately linked. So I can see here, if I select this wall that I modeled earlier, it also selects it in this 3D view here on the left hand side. So what I'm actually going to do now is just show you some quick tools for working in those type of views. And what I like to do is I like to have a 2D floor plan open on one side and then the 3D view on the other side. And this just helps me jump between the two, because you will find that you'll model in your 2D floor plan for certain elements, and then maybe for different elements you'll jump into your 3D view. So the way I like to work is using something called a section box. So if I go to my left hand side here, in my 3D view, I can see section boxes selected. So I'm just going to turn that off for a moment. I'm just going to hit it again. And what that's actually going to do, it's actually hidden in the background. I'm just going to unhide that. So I can see here I've got something called a section box. And what this section box allows me to do, it actually allows me to cut through the building in order to allow me to see what's being modeled and to see how the junctions are lining up as well. So I can see the wall here, I can see how that's connecting to the floor and the ceiling. And I can also see how we've got a nice tidy join coming from our stud work up to our roof plan here as well. So if I just pull down my section box in my floor plan, you can also see cut floor plans. So using the section box is a very handy way to be able to interrogate your design, or even show it to a client or even other people in your office to explain maybe the design that you wouldn't necessarily get just from a 2D drawing. So section box is very handy. It can be turned on or off. So I can just turn this on or off if I want, and it still leaves it like that just using the element hide, or I can undo that and I can bring it back up. And another very handy tool as well is if you go to your just view tab here, and if you want to create a 3D view, I can go to any one of my particular views, floor plan. I'm going to go to floor plan level 2. I'm just going to right click on this, and all this is going to do, it's just going to rotate me to that particular plan view, and it's going to hide everything else other than what is located at that particular. The next thing I want to cover is understanding the Revit coordinate system and how that reflects in the project base point and the survey base point, for example. So you can see here in a 3D view, we've got our building that we can see. And if you go to your Manage tab, you can actually change the coordinates up here. So you've got a couple of different options. You can acquire the coordinates from a linked project. So that can be a CAD file or a Revit file or another format. You can also publish coordinates in the current model, and this uses them for the linked file if there's a linked file in there. And then you can specify coordinates at a point, and you can also report shared coordinates as well. So how this reflects by using the survey base point and the project base point, when you open up a Revit project, by default your survey base point and your project point are turned off. So the way we turn them on is we type in VV for visibility. And this is just a view specific visibility. And under site, if we just turn on site, we can see we've got some elements here called project base point and survey base point. So by default they're turned off, but they are active in the background, you just can't see them. So if I hit apply on this, I'm going to click on this one. So this is the survey point, and we can see here we've got a north, south, east, west, and an elevation. So the survey point is a constant location or point of origin that can be a point on your site or the national grid system if you prefer. If it is a location on your site, it should be an existing point or landmark that will not be moved as a result of the construction or whatever you're building on the site. And you need to consider this as a real world point of location that constantly exists without anything being constructed. Now, on the project base point, you can see here on the left hand side, the project base point should be a meaningful point in your building or proposal. So this can be, for example, an intersection of grid lines, or for example the bottom left corner of the terrace area in this case. The location of the project base point is relative to the survey base point. So if you move the project base point unclipped, then the coordinates will update. If you move it while clipped, it will move the location and buildings in your project. You can consider this a transient point in the project, as it can change if the project requires it. Building designs change constantly, therefore your project base point may also too. So the next thing we're going to look at is just using view templates and how they work and affect each of your views. So a view template doesn't affect your actual model, it only affects how it appears on that particular view that you have open. So for example, if I go to my left hand side here of my 3D view that I have in front of me, I can go down to the left hand side and I can go to something called view template. Now there are by default some templates already installed with the default Revit templates, so I'm just going to use one of those for example. So we can see we've got one here called 3D view, and each of these view templates have a series of different settings to them here onto the right. So this can be the visibility of certain things, the colors of certain things. This particular view template that in the background is only a black and white image, as you can see, but I can change that by using something like a view template and changing the different settings. So the different settings within this, I can change the scale that template applies to, the detail level that it appears at. So what I'm going to do here, I'm just going to turn off the scale for the moment, just because I don't want to affect the scale of it. I'm just going to hit apply on this, and you'll see that particular 3D view has now changed. The lines have slightly changed on it, but it's fairly blank. So what I'm going to do, I'm actually going to just see what settings are set down here. So in the bottom of this particular element, I can see all of these are grayed out, and this is because the view template is actually controlling these elements. So if I was to disable the view template, hit apply, click OK, just disable it, I now have access to these particular display settings. I can turn on and off shadows if I want. I can turn the sun on. I can change this to consistent colors, change this to realistic colors if I want. Just giving you that bit more look. But if you use a view template, all of those settings are controlled from within the view template. And the purpose of that is that you can apply consistency across your designs and across your drawings by using view templates. Therefore, I can have a series of 3D views and having them all look the same. So if I now want to save this particular setting or as a view template, I can type in something called GD, called graphic display, which is also found on the left hand side here under graphic display options. I can change the settings. What I like to set is something called smooth lines with anti-aliasing, and that just kind of gives you a bit more of a rounded line, and it's just nicer when it's on a sheet. I can turn on and off shadows, so you can turn off the shadows from here, apply, and you'll see the shadow disappear from here now. That just takes a second because it's in realistic mode. You can turn off that setting, and I'm actually going to set this to shaded. I'm just going to hit apply on that. I'm just going to set that to shaded, smooth anti-aliasing. I want to turn on shadows, ambient shadows, which gives you a slightly different glow on a surface. So if I just turn off shadows and leave on ambient shadows, it actually gives you a slight glow or gradient across your surfaces, and it can look quite good. So other things you can do, such as sketchy lines. So you can turn on your lines, a sketch look to your elements, and that's it. So just hit apply on that to undo it. I've disabled it. I'm just going to click OK on that. And what I'm going to do now is just go back to my view template. So I've got no view template set, as I can see here, but I do have settings in here that I've updated here. So what I'm going to do is save this as a view template. I'm just going to call this new 3D view. So new 3D view. Hit OK on that. That's saved in there. Just click OK on that. And I'm actually going to place another 3D view. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go into one of my levels, into level 1. It's going to go to my view. I'm going to set a camera over here, just facing straight into that window. And we can see it's not a great looking image. What I'm now going to do is actually go into my view template, hit new 3D view, and just hit apply on that. And all of the settings that I just created now apply to that particular 3D. Other settings that I can also apply to this, I can just open up my crop view on this. I can just increase that. I'm going to go back into my view template on the left hand side, and what I'm actually going to do is just change the background. The reason for that is I'm just going to give it a bit of a blue sky, so I can select sky, give it a ground color, hit apply, see what that comes in like. It's a bit dark for my liking, so what I'm going to do, actually going to apply a gradient. What I like to do is just choose the sky color blue, and make the horizon completely white, and actually make the ground color completely white. And this just gives it a nice kind of gradient look to the particular sky. Just hit apply on that, click OK, and that then obviously reflects anywhere you have that particular element set. Now the other thing with view templates, you can also apply these to floor plans as well. So I could go into this floor plan, and for example, I could go into my view template on the left hand side, and I could apply this view template if I want. I can go into 3D views and apply new 3D view, but this is not a 3D view as we know. But we can just see, for example, that it applies all of those settings. We can see the shadow, the ambient shadows, and any other sort of parameters or properties that you have set in that particular 3D view. And there are plenty of other ones pre-installed that come with any of your Revit templates as well, straight out of the box after install. There's also one for site plan. I can just set different settings on that. This one, click apply, and I can change any of the settings within this particular element, such as color scheme. So all of the rooms in this case are colored by color scheme. I can in fact color the entire building by the different areas. So whenever there's a different area of a room, it will change color. So we can see here every different area of a room has a different color applied to it. I like to do it by name. So therefore on the left hand side, everything has a particular name applied to it. And this can be applied through a view template as well. The next to show you is how to create a quantity schedule. So we can see here on the right hand side there's something called a schedule created. It's a planting schedule, and this counts different elements in your project. So it allows you to quantify certain elements. So this can be furniture, it can be wall measurements or floor measurements, or even the number of beds that you have in a particular building. So in this case, it's planting all of the trees. We can see we've got 8 of these honey locusts and 1 of hawthorn and so on and so forth. So to create one of these schedules is quite easy. I'll just show you the purpose of it now. As I click into each of these, it's actually highlighting those trees in that particular in the particular model. So if I was to delete one of these trees, you'll see the number update on the right hand side, so the count update, and that's just for trees. But we can do this with a lot more content. So what I'm going to go down to here is go to my schedules and quantities, simply right click and go to new schedule or quantity, and I'm going to create one for furniture. So furniture, click OK on that, click OK. So it's going to give me up a series of different options. So these schedulable properties actually come from the properties that are contained within the Revit object itself. So if I was to go into a floor plan, so go into a floor plan and select a piece of furniture. So I'm going to go in and select this chair. Select this chair. So these are the properties that it's going to actually put into the schedule. So if I go to edit type, I can pull in the different materials, if there's some sort of elevation, and the particular name of that as well. And the same goes for a window. I can also pull in the different elements from that window as well. So I'm just going to go back down to my schedule here. So right click, new schedule, just going to go to furniture. Just going to click OK on that. So I'm just going to set this to working drawings, that's the phase. So what I'm going to do, I want to pull in the count, the number of chairs. I want the name of the chair, so I want the type of the chair. And I also want the family of the chair as well. So this just allows me to filter my information, I suppose, in a different context, depending on what's relevant. So you can also pull in a lot of other information, such as the manufacturer, the level that it's actually placed at. We'll bring in the level as well. You can also, if there's a URL or some sort of link to manufacturing or specification data, you can also do that from within a schedule as well. And this particular one is just being created for furniture. And you can also put in a cost as well, that you can also apply a rate to a particular chair or a particular piece of furniture. So I'm just going to click OK on that. And we can see now that all of our elements within our project have been created within a schedule. So it's not creating new objects. All it's doing is counting them up. So I'm just going to tile this just by using the WT. So I'm just going to tile these side by side. And we can see here that we've got sorry, that was. So you can see here we actually have the count in the column. So we've got one of everything. We've got the type of those particular chairs. So if I was to go into a floor plan, into my floor plans on the left hand side. So I'm just going to pull this over to the left hand side. And I'm going to start selecting these chairs. You can see they're actually highlighting in that floor plan, and we've got 2 of them here, and then we've got lots of different types. We've got bar chairs, dining chairs. So that's for furniture. That's fairly basic to be able to do. You can also do a lot of filtering and sorting using the schedule properties on the left hand side. I could sort all of these by level, for example, so everything that's placed at particularly level 1 or one of the level 1s. Click OK. I want to click level foundation only at living room, and all this is doing is filtering them. And I can also change the fields that we've already added to those particular items as well. And then I can format them in different ways. So if I want all of the counts to add up, I can also do that from in here. So if I go to sorting and grouping, I can itemize every instance, or I can just grand total all of them if I wish as well. So I'm going to click OK on that, and we can see that they've all filtered only items that exist at level 1. Now the benefit of this is because you can place these particular schedules on a sheet. So I can go into one of my sheets. So I've got a sheet view here. I'm actually just going to remove this 3D view. I'm going to pull my furniture schedule. So what I'm going to do is just simply drag that schedule onto my sheet, and you can see that it now places in here. And I can do some formatting just to tidy it up. It will automatically size itself once you make it all the text fit in one line. So on the right hand side, just move that over, and you can simply see you've got a simple furniture schedule here. You can print this out for a contractor or for a client, and very easy to paste costs in here as well. Or you can also place costs from within the Revit model, or they can be done by hand after it's printed out as well. So the next tip I'm going to give you is show you how to place drawings on sheets. So I know I've placed a schedule there in a sheet, but I'm going to show you how to place an actual floor plan on a sheet. So on the left hand side here, we've got sheets, and what I'm going to do, I'm just going to right click and create a new sheet, and it's going to pull up all of the templates that I have loaded into this project. So this particular one, I only have an A1 metric template. So it's going to click OK on that, and it's going to create a sheet. And I can see under sheets, it comes in unnamed. So what I'm going to just call this, I'm just going to call this floor plans. Floor plans, and it's given a number. I'll leave the number as it is. So in order to place a drawing on a sheet, I simply just go to my project browser on the left hand side, pull the level across. So that has already been placed on a sheet. It will always give you a warning. What I'm actually going to do, I'm going to duplicate this particular floor plan, duplicate. So right click it, I'm going to rename this and just call it proposed level 1. So it intelligently will not allow you to place something on a sheet that is already placed on a sheet. So it's allowing you to hopefully avoid some sort of errors there as well. So proposed level 1, simply just drag it onto your sheet. Now, when you bring it onto a sheet, it gives you the name that it is called in here in the left-hand side. If I rename this, it will also reflect in here. It automatically brings in the scale. Now, in order to change the scale, I'm just going to close these. In order to change the scale on this, I can simply select this, and because it has a view template applied to it, I actually want to disable the scale within that particular template. I'm just going to apply on that. So in order just to change the scale on this, go up to my left-hand side, go to say 1:50, hit apply on that. Simply just drag your drawing down. And this is the reason that I duplicated it, because the other floor plan is only at 1:100, which is fine, but maybe you also want a more detailed floor plan shown at 1:50. So you can simply just drag the elements, your title block elements. So here we have, I just stretch that across, just tidy that up. You can also customize these if you wish. And what I can also do is just to start to crop this as well. So if I double click into it, and down in the bottom left hand side here, I can see show crop region. So what I want to do is show the crop region. So all this is going to do is just allow me to crop that particular element on the page. So what I'm doing is just hiding any of the kind of external elements on that. And I can even turn off elements that will not be shown up as well. So I could select all of the grid lines, for example, all of the grid lines, and select all of them. And what I can actually do is I can override by element. And I can override by element, I can change the appearance of them as well, and I can hide the elements. So I'm just going to hide those elements. And then what I'm going to go back down here is just go hide crop region. So it still crops it, but it just hides the actual box. So that's how you place a drawing on a sheet. The same goes for a floor plan as well, or other floor plans and elevation, and the same for a 3D view. So if I wanted to place this 3D view on this sheet, I can also drag this onto my left-hand side here, place that on the right-hand side, and you can simply just drag up your sheet. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to delete these particular elements. We don't need them anyway. I can close that and place my nice 3D view there, and giving me a nice looking presentation sheet there as well. The next tip I'm going to show you is how to place room tags. So Revit intelligently knows if walls contain a room. So the reason you know that is if you zoom in on one of your floor plans, I'm just going to zoom in on one of these sheets. I'm going to select this particular wall, and on the left hand side here I can see room bounding is enabled, and by default most walls are room bounding. So the reason for that is because you can codify the square meter of your rooms, and objects also know which room they're in. So in order to place rooms, you simply go to your architecture tab. So just go to architecture, go to room on the left hand side here, you can type in ORM on the keyboard, which I like to use. Just click room, and what I'm going to do, I'm just going to place that particular room, and you can see it automatically finds the walls. I'm going to place this room, place another one here, and you can just do that across all of your particular rooms. So that's all of my internal rooms. I've also got a landing. I'll leave that for the moment. So I can also now rename these rooms. So when I hover in over here, you can see it brings up a kind of a crosshair or cross X, and that's actually your room placement. So I can select that, and it will bring up all of the properties here. So it will tell me the area, the perimeter of it, the volume of it if I want, and kind of the limit offset. I can also rename it here. So I can just call this open plan. I'm going to say KLD for kitchen, living, diner. Open plan. Hit apply on that. And that has now placed that particular room name on this particular element. And the reason that is changing color is because, as we saw earlier, you can create something called a color scheme. And the color scheme on this particular Revit template, as we can see here on the left-hand side, we can go into color scheme, is set to room name, I believe. It is set to room name. So we can see that it's created a new color here, open plan KLD, and that was automatically created as well. I can turn off this color scheme if I want. So I'm just going to turn off this color scheme. I'm just going to hit apply on that. Therefore, I'm able to just go into the left-hand side here and enable the color scheme from these particular settings. I'm going to just turn this off for the moment, just to keep it clearer. So we've got open plan KLD. I can also change this to living, and so on and so forth. I can even go into hallway. And this allows you to then quantify that information, place it into something like a schedule, and then place that particular schedule on it. The last and final tip I'm going to show you is use multi-category tags, and these are really powerful tags or annotation information that actually pull information from the objects that can be, I suppose, reused in 3D views or 2D views as well. And it's very useful because you only enter the information once, so that can be specification information. In this example, I'm just going to show you a window tag number. So using a multi-category tag, if you go to your Annotate tab and just go to multi-category at the very top of your screen, if you click multi-category, in this particular project, there's one loaded in already. If I hover over a window, we can see that a number comes up, the number 46, and that's just a type of that window. If I was to hover over another object, for example, I'm just going to right-click on this, create similar, and if I was to, it won't find it on that. So what I'm going to do, I'm actually going to create a multi-category tag from scratch. And what this allows you to do is just pull up additional information that is contained within your Revit object. So all I'm going to do here is just go to under my Annotate tab and just drop down tag. And if you go to loaded tags and symbols, I'm going to load in a family. I'm going to go to my UK library, into annotations, into tags. And you only have to do this once you start the project. So I'm going to use something called a multi-category tag. There are plenty of other tags there for floors and windows and walls. Multi-category is just a generic one that you can use on almost any project or any object. Just hit OK on that. So you can see now, once I have this multi-category tag enabled, I can select any object within here. So I can select this wall and it's bringing up a question mark. And the reason it's bringing up a question mark is because it doesn't know what information to find. So I can just go into this particular, I'm going to open this up in the family editor, and this particular label, what it actually finds, it finds the Revit parameter of type mark. So therefore it can't find type mark. And what I'm going to do, I'm just going to change this to type comments. I'm going to place type comments in there. It's going to take type mark. And therefore, whenever I place this on an object, it will always look for the type comments parameter. So I'm just going to load this into my project now. Right, that's absolutely fine. So there are no type comments on this wall. So to enable that, I can go into my type comments, and what I'm actually going to do, I'm actually going to copy all of this. I'm going to copy that from description and just place that in type comments. Hit apply on that. We can see that brings in its entirety that complete note that we want to see there. And if I actually go into a 3D view, and if I can find that same wall, I'm actually going to turn off this tree. So I believe it's this wall. I'll turn off this tree as well. So one thing that when you place notes in a 3D view, you must lock your view. So I'm just going to save this view. Just going to click OK on that. You can't save it. I'm just going to call this 3D1. Click OK. You can't save it as a default 3D view. I'm going to go back to annotation. I'm going to go to multi-category, and you can see that particular note is now pulled in there. So that's the same information. It was only entered once, and if I enter that type of information on a window, on a different type of wall, that's a different type of wall. I can also go into this wall, and wherever that's placed, I can change the type comments. So this is particular it's a very similar note actually. And I'm just going to go into type comments, paste that in there, and you can also type your own custom. So these can be finishes or anything like that as well. And that can also be applied to a window, for example. So multi-category, I'm going to select my window, and I'm going to go into this particular window, change the type comments. So type comments, I'm just going to say, grey aluminium. So alu, keep it for short, hit apply. Click OK, and you can see that's grey alu in there as well. So wherever I place that note on that particular window type, it will also appear. The same if I do it in a floor plan. So if I go back to level 1, go into my floor plan, make sure I'm placing the note at the right level. If I select that particular window, we can see alu grey is now coming in there as well. So thank you very much. I will now take a couple of questions at the end, and I hope that was useful.
Great, thank you very much, Jonathan. That was very, very informative. A lot of things covered there. And as you can see, this webinar really was a chance to understand the different types of features that you have within Revit. It's when you get started, and some things you may have just overlooked or never even thought of before. So it really, really helps using Revit make it a lot easier to use. So we're just going to go to the questions. We have a question about how do you get a title block, a personalized title block into a sheet.
Perfect, I see that there. So I'll just jump into Revit here. So by default, there are templates loaded in, but you can also, if you go down to your sheets, go to new sheet, it gives you an option to load in a family. So if I go to load, for example, it will bring me to wherever I have my title block saved. So in this case, I've got a series of title blocks saved in here. You can create your custom title blocks with intelligent information, and if you save them within here as well, then you just load them in from this particular folder.
Yeah, and I think the main thing is the title blocks are they are families that you load in. That's right, isn't it?
Exactly. So for example, I'll open up this family. You could open up this family, and you could even edit this particular one, you know, put in your company logo in here, move around any of this information. And this is all parametric information where you see the text. Therefore, it only applies when you load it into that particular project. And this is an RFA file. So yes, it is a family file as opposed to an RVT file, and you load it in to your Revit project. Yes.
Great. So we had another question, which I think is probably a bit long, but it's something we might cover anyway. We haven't covered it. We covered a little bit of it between types and instances in our second point. But Tobias is asking, just talk a bit more about the wall types in terms of particular how to deal with different wall finishes. So I'm guessing he's worried about having to create a lot of different instances.
Exactly, and Tobias, I've had this dilemma myself several times, particularly when starting to use Revit. And I suppose the first thing is, what I like to keep as few wall types as is practical to the project. So that's going to depend on the size of your project and how many walls you need to create, and you'll kind of need to make that call. A general rule I like to work to, if you don't necessarily have to model every single finish. So for example, if it's a tile finish in the bathroom and a tile finish around the kitchen counter, that can be simply notated on your drawings. So that's one way of doing it, is just by placing a note on that particular wall, and that just calls it up. But if you wanted to quantify it, what you would do, for example, so say you've had, this is a wall here, for example, and this is basic wall timber cladding. And say you wanted to place a tile finish just on this section of the wall. So you could either notate it, as I suggested, but another way you could do it is actually create a wall type just for the tile. So what you would actually do, I'd go in, edit type, I'd create a blank wall, and I'd only create it as a tiled wall. So I'm just going to call that tile, click OK, and all I do here is just create a wall that's only, for example, 10 mil or 20 mil thick, whatever the thickness of your wall is. And I just choose the tile material. So I just go in, choose my tile material from in here, whatever it is, or if it's a different type of finish, and then I place that. But I would be cautious. For example, we don't have a tile yet. I'll just use this particular plane setting. And I would be careful of doing that though, just because if you get a lot of different tile finishes and stuff, you know, obviously then you'll need to manage them in the background as well. So it's kind of a balance between what can you notate instead of modeling, and then what do you need to model. So obviously, yes, if you are quantifying them for a particular reason, you may need to model them just in different sections. And then in front of this wall, you would just place a separate wall type or a separate file type of that particular wall as well. Thank you. I hope that answers your questions.
Yeah, no, that was very detailed. I think if you guys want to see possibly a bit more, some more content on wall types, so we can probably put something together. We'll see if what the interest is in that, a bit more information on how to use wall types the best ability. And again, it comes down to level of detail, doesn't it, Jonathan?
Exactly.
And the amount of information you want to put into a wall.
Exactly, and there's no such thing as the perfect BIM model. You know, it's about the information as well, and hence the term BIM. The information, you know, do you notate something or do you model it? And it's how much time you can, you know, afford to spend, how much is the client paying you to spend on the project as well. So it's a balance of those things between modeling and notation.
And I think initially there's a lot of setup, but once that setup's done, it's very easy just to select what you need and move forward.
Exactly.
So in a setup initially, and then the workflow gets a lot quicker, a lot faster after that. We've got a question again about grid bubbles on the floor plans. Can the size be adjusted within the drawing space?
So when you
that's something you set by yourselves, I believe.
Exactly, you can set it in the. So I believe these will change by. So if I go into a drawing, if I change the scale, the grid bubbles should update. If not, you can also create your own grid bubbles as well. So I'm just going to change the scale on this to 200. So they actually stay the same. So what you can actually do, you can find where this grid bubble is. If you go into your library, your family library. So I like to go into Windows Explorer. I have this is your pre-installed library. Within, I believe it's annotations. I think your grid lines are all generated in here. I think it's grid lines or tags perhaps. Anyway, you'll find your grid lines in your family library. You go into your annotations and you can create and adjust your own ones. You can see there's another, you can create a square grid head there. Open up your anno grid head circle and you can just resize it from in there and then just load that into your project, and you can reuse that on every single project then as well. You can just rename it as something different. Yeah,
so I think the main thing is that it can all be personalized and can all be you don't have to, you can make your own ones and bring them in. Again, it's how you populate a library and based on what Revit already gives you at the start. So I think people are coming from an idea of it being annotative, like from an AutoCAD perspective, changing around, but it can be done in here as well. So you can customize it. What have we got else? Can you talk about displaying materials? So I'm guessing that's the materials browser adding on to.
Yes, so Revit comes installed with its own material library. So under the Manage tab, you can see what comes installed. Now you can go into quite a level of detail in terms of creating your own material libraries within Revit as well. But it is a fairly comprehensive. There's hundreds, if not thousands, of different materials that come installed. So let's see what's loaded into this particular project. So here we have like a wooden material, for example. Within here, we can control how it appears, you know, in a drawing format, but we can also control how it appears in a rendering situation as well. So you can actually attach different images to it and even add things such as bump maps as well. You can even go to further detail by adding physical information and thermal information as well. So U values and your different type of information in that regard as well, whether it's insulation, a piece of timber, or if it's just a visual thing as well. And separately, another part of your question may mean is just the display graphics. You can also jump between, sorry, down in the bottom left here, you can jump between different views here. And if you go to realistic, This will show what materials, based on the images that we just saw in the material, that will appear when you select the realistic view in there as well. I hope that answers your question. Hello?
Apologies about that. Looks like we had a little bit of technical difficulty there. Can you hear me now, Jonathan?
I can, yeah. Sorry,
Yeah.
I don't know what happened there.
Sorry about that, guys. If you're still with us, apologies for that. I think we were just covering the displaying materials, weren't we?
Yeah, sorry, the display materials just in the bottom of the screen. Just you can jump between the different views down here, change it to hidden line or realistic as well, and that's controlled from in the materials library as well.
Great. And again, if you want something more on displaying materials within Revit, a bit more details on that, maybe top 10 tips on that, we're happy to put something together, and for our future webinars, do let us know what topics you want us to cover. In the sheet view, the font size, can the font size be changed in the sheet view?
It can, yes, and that's the same way you control your grid bubbles as well. And a lot of these questions will come back to actually setting up your company template, whereas you'll create one project and you'll have all of your standard text size, dimension size, and all those styles. You can save that as your company template and then reuse it, and that goes for grid bubbles and even text size as well. So you'll actually do that from in the family editor into architectural, and these are the elevation names. You'll see them down the bottom here. You can edit these particular ones and save them as different ones as well. So I could actually load this one in and I can change the text size within the family editor as well.
Okay, perfect. I think that's it for now. Any more questions, do let us know. We'll answer them now, or we can answer them. We can send you an email and answer them later on. Yeah, so it just comes down to, Jonathan, it just comes down to really setting up your style, setting up your template, setting up everything first before then you start moving into a project, right? So that's kind of a big step to do before you move into a project in Revit.
Exactly, and you I suppose you only know what you want in your template by getting started on your first project. You know, you use Revit out of the box essentially, and then based on that, you'll kind of make edits to different things, such as your title blocks. And such as your page notation and things like that as well.
Yeah, and we do offer services. You know, we can come in and do some work with you to sort of work out the best way for it, what you want to achieve, and how to bestly put those together. So setting up templates in Revit. So do offer training for that as well. So do get in touch if you're interested in that. So just a quick question about, I think the last question we'll take is just about rendering in the cloud. So using cloud rendering in Revit,
yeah,
with your Revit model. What do you think about that? I mean, compared to, so obviously I can imagine people with Revit LT do not have the rendering capabilities in the software. They have render in the cloud capabilities. So just looking at the differences between the software and the cloud features.
So I'm a big fan of rendering in the cloud. And I find it's quite powerful, and it's very quick, I have to say, and it doesn't use any of your machine processing power whatsoever. It just sends it to the cloud, and usually in less than 10 minutes you'll get a fairly high quality render back. But in saying that, the rendering in the product is quite useful as well. It wouldn't necessarily be as good as using something like 3D Max, because that's a dedicated software for it. But I do find rendering in the cloud is quite powerful, I do have to say, and I'm a big fan of it.
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I do believe it saves you a lot of time again and effort, so it's very useful. Great, I think. So Mandy's asking which rendering software is in the cloud. So Autodesk offer you an option to render your model straight from Revit to the cloud. So that option there.
Exactly. So if you just, it's in your Revit toolbar, and you just choose what image you want to render. So one of the 3D images that was already created in the project, I could select one of them, what quality I want, So I think it's a standard quality is free, but if you start going to a higher quality image, you need to purchase credits. I'm not sure the exact cost of those,
Yeah,
but you can still get the standard renders for free anyway.
that's right. So the big difference between rendering with the software and rendering the cloud is obviously you need to have credits in order to do it the quality that you want. With the software itself, you can do it from within software, so built in. Perfect. Great. I think we'll leave it there. Any other questions, do let us know in the chat box, or send us an email afterwards and we'll get back to you as soon as we can. Just a quick wrap up. I just want to bring your attention to our future events that are happening, future webinars. If you have a look out for emails to register for other webinars, we'll be announcing them soon. At the moment, we've got one coming up on the 28th of July at 11 o'clock. I believe we've posted a link in the chat box there if you can have a look and register for that. It is getting started with BIM interoperability tools in Revit. So very, very useful tools indeed. They're free Autodesk apps designed to help architects, engineers, contractors, and owners with their BIM workflows. So again, Jonathan is kindly here to cover things like IFC data, what to do with that and how to convert it and how to bring it in and export it. Classification manager, model checker, Kobe extension for Revit and Navisworks. So very interesting stuff indeed. Please register for that, and we'll see you on the 28th. I think we'll leave it there. Thank you very much for attending today, and please have a good week ahead of you. Thanks very much, Jonathan, for being here today. I appreciate all that you said. Let us know if you have any questions. I think that's bye for now.
Perfect. Thank you, everybody, and have a good day.
Thank you. Bye now.